hope you all had a blast with last week's episode featuring John from Circus Cannabis Co. Big shout out to John for sharing his insights with us. This week, we've got another exciting guest joining us. This individual is not only a friend, but also someone deeply involved in various aspects of the cannabis industry. From running a seed bank to producing top-notch genetics and solvent lists, he's an East Coast native and he's making waves and spreading positivity everywhere he goes. Be sure to check out his social media profiles at Brownbag Farm Goods and at Brownbag Seeds on Instagram. And check this out. Being the guy he is, he's even hooking us all up with a sweet 10% discount code. That's TerpTrends for his website, brownbagfarmgoods.com. I'm pumped to kick off this episode. So without further ado, this is Terp Trends. Let's dive in.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be on here. I just listened to your last episode and it was great. Definitely honored that you would include me.
Yeah, man. Again, really happy to have you on and really happy so far with all the positive feedback when I reach out to anyone and ask if they would be down to do an episode. And everyone has been excited and willing to do it so far. I'm stoked to be able to highlight such an array of cool people in this cannabis community, especially centered on the East Coast. So I really hope people enjoy it.
I was definitely, I've been a long time listener of cannabis podcasts. Obviously, before that was on the forums back in the day when I was a kid and stuff. But, I've learned so much from podcasts like, Hash Church and Future Cannabis Project and the Hashishin and the podcast. And this can be another great resource for the community we can add to.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, that's the goal, is kind of bring more of the community together and get people more in touch with other people that they may not be able to in modern day life,
Definitely. And so I'm excited to just be here and kind of share who I am and what I'm doing. So like you said, I go by Brownbag Seeds, which kind of covers my growing, breeding, hash making endeavors. And then I also have a seed bank website called Brownbag Farm Goods, which is brownbagfarmgoods.com. And that is really my, public face and public business that allows me to, connect with anybody on all levels. And then the growing, the hash making and the seed making is a little bit more, private and personal. But definitely excited to share everything that I've got going on both fronts.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love to see that you have your seed bank started, because I remember where we were years ago in a place where maybe you weren't able to do this where you can now. And, you had a nice vault going, sir. I would love to, when you'd send me your list of genetics, just to read it when I would have certain clients maybe looking for genetics. You were always the first person that I would try to keep in mind. And it's cool to see how much you've collected and your excitement and where it's gone today, and the fact that you are able to pursue that and release it to people. I think that's so important, to see where cannabis is going, because 10 years in the past, I don't think you and I would maybe sit down and say that we're going to talk about what we're talking about right now.
Definitely. Yeah, I've been collecting seeds for a long time. Definitely got more into it after returning from Colorado to Pennsylvania. It was sort of like my, access back into the, the breeding culture. When we would go to events like Indo Expo or NECAN, it's like I would really take advantage of that opportunity and just like stock up as much as I could. And that ultimately sort of led to the seed bank existing, because I was like, I have way more than I'm ever going to be able to pop myself. And I have no intention of stopping collecting and buying either. So it sort of just a natural evolution. And then, has allowed me to support breeders that I really want to continue working. And I want to see people growing their gear because, they're actually bringing something exciting and new to the table. So to get to be that person in the middle of of that happening is really cool, and definitely grateful that people buy seeds from me, and um, even just growing them. I send out and give out a lot of seeds that I make for free. Um, and that's like something that I believe is just part of, how breeders should be, or anybody who's making seeds should be, is, you know, uh, like get that Johnny Appleseed vibe going, really like just get it out there because, like for take someone like me, for example, I've so many seeds just accumulating, and, for me to pop a pack, it's special and it's exciting. And, I want people to have that experience with genetics that I've created. And, sometimes it takes just getting the pack seeds into somebody's hand. And even if it costs me money, like I'm sending out packs and paying for the shipping, and obviously paying for the stickers and the packaging, and the breeding work that goes into it, but it's still worth it to me for me to pay for someone else to grow it, because it's just kind of like getting that part of me out into the world, and I want as many people to get to experience, some of the cool varieties that I've created, and sort of no matter how that happens, like I want it to happen. So I think giving out free seeds is a huge part of getting your name out there as a breeder, and also just getting those experiences to actually happen.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I feel like that's so important in this cannabis community for maybe anybody who has never grown, new growers, growers have been doing it for years. It is a special experience when you do have a handful of seeds and you start your first maybe project, because each seed is a mystery and each seed's going to be different. And if you are someone that gets excited over growing, I mean, just fantasizing over the possibilities of the phenos that you have in your hand is it's a good time, and it's fun to just see what this plant is capable of doing. So someone on your side of it, I mean, you're on the start. It all starts from the soil and the seed, and I think you being the kind of you're kind of for the community, with everything you're doing that I see you doing in the city. I mean, you are really about getting the message out there and just making sure it's very positive, but also involving people, which I think is one of the most important aspects of cannabis. Sometimes we get wrapped up in our own things, and I feel like this industry does get a little egotistical. So when you do come across individuals like yourself who does not bring that aspect to it, that side of it, it's very rewarding. And it does give people that just sense of being comfortable with who you're dealing with, which I feel like is very important. And also creating that spark of creativity, which I think is also very important, and what's our backbone of our industry is going to need to keep us pushing forward. So when you're going into your seeds, are there any plants that you've been producing or any projects that you've been producing lately that you've been very just fascinated with and have been wanting to get out more?
Definitely love the journey, and 2023, I did a bunch of breeding projects back to back, and so many so that I couldn't test them all. So that's been part of sending out all these free seeds, is um, some of the stuff that I know I'm not going to get to grow for a while, kind of letting other people get to enjoy it and experience it. And I do get some information on the back end as well, which is helpful for me. But mostly, like um, the project that I've been really putting out there into the world has been this Ike's 80s Humboldt Afghani project that I did, that is based on AK Bean Brain's seed stock of that same name. So I believe it was a reproduction that he did, and I wanted to just hit it to as many different Afghanis and Kushes and types like that that I could. So I've been really enjoying seeing other people growing these for the first time without me having, uh, having the ability to grow them yet. Getting to see other people have fun with it has been really cool. But in terms of stuff that I'm actually selling and stuff that I'm growing myself, I've been really focused on Passion Project, which is a cross that I did with straw guava as the mom and passion fruit hash plant as the dad. And passion fruit hash plant has Laos landrace in it, and that one's from Bodhi. And the father and the females for all of the seeds from that have this insane passion fruit flavor. Um, and so I was super excited to use the most passion fruity male from that pack and hit it to a bunch of my favorite keepers that I have in my stable. One that has really been sort of like my bread and butter the last few years has been the straw guava. And so that straw guava and the passion fruit hash plant together made the passion project, which is super delicious. It has a wide range of tropical fruit flavors, and also earthy notes as well. But the keepers that I pulled out of it are like sour green Skittles. Those grainy, super sour ones that like rub off on your tongue and like make it raw. And so I'm really excited about that. It comes out incredible as hash. It yields about 3% to hash, which isn't insanely great, but it's also good enough that it's worthwhile to run for me. And the hash translates the flavor really well. So I'm stoked on that. And I used a male or a couple males from that line as well. To again some of my favorite keepers. And so now what I've been doing is testing those out. And the one that uh, I'm releasing in the next week or so is called Ancient Fruit. And that one is actually a collab with my friend, the Illinois Gangier. And he's on Instagram at the underscore IL underscore Gangier. And he's a really accomplished grower and breeder and genetics collector as well. And so he gave me one that he made, which was a Dosido crossed with a straw nan. He has a straw nan from Colorado, and so he reversed that. And so the Dosido straw nan of that mom was just beautiful, beautiful purple plant with giant heads or trichomes. And so uh, that one crossed with the Passion Project is the Ancient Fruit, and that one yielded 5.5% to full spec hash. And it did 2% to first wash 90U and 3.3% to 90U across all washes. So that one really performed in the solventless arena super well, which makes me super excited. But more exciting than that to me is the flavor profile that came through. The range was crazy, but I got like banana baby food. I got um, like strawberries and like paint thinner and like nail polish remover, and like strawberry banana like Yoplait, and so and some crazy earthy flavors as well. Um, Kind of more undertones though. And so that one I'm stoked about because the flavor profile is like, very exciting. The texture even of the resin as I was collecting it out of the bag and the spoon, it just was exciting. I could tell it felt different than any other strain that I've collected in the wash before. So, and it came out great. It's hash and rosin. So I'm stoked. I'm going to be releasing the rosin
Wow.
soon. For any of those who are in my network. And then also the seeds will be coming out for anybody at brownbagfarmgoods.com in the next week or two. I just got the stickers in, so I just have to package them up and make the posts. But I'm really excited to share those. Um, Excited that that one is a collab with my good friend, uh, and just really excited to continue to test the rest of the Passion Project line. Let me just pull up what that is. So the other crosses that that I've done with the Passion Project would be Ancient OG crossed with Afghan Sestan X18 Pakistani, which is from Magic Spirit Seed Co. And that one I actually also grew out, and that one that I'm not releasing the seeds of because there's only a handful of seeds from it because it was just like a quick, let me pollinate this branch in in the other flower tent. It wasn't even in the breeding tent, just so I don't miss the opportunity to make this cross. And the results from that were crazy. They're really high calyx to leaf ratio and just different looking than what I would have expected, and some really deep earthy flavors. And so that one, the Dosido Stronana, which is the ancient fruit, and that ancient energy one that I just mentioned, I called that one extinct fruit because there's only a handful of seeds. Then I also have the ones that I have currently in flower that I'm testing would be the Dead Hood OG crossed with the Passion Project, the passion fruit hash plant crossed with the passion project, so that's like a back cross, and the straw guava crossed with the passion project. That's another back cross. And then in seedling form, I have the Chem 91 and passion project, the Mother's Milk and passion project, and the GG4 and passion project. And then I still have to test the sour diesel, triangle kush, taiki, um, Hollywood TK, not the Hollywood PK, but it's across from my friend. Melty Melons, which is one that I did, which is the Taiki cross with the LAB, and the Hazmat OG, which is Chem 91 Face Off OG EX. So a lot of potential still to come out of this line, and I'll be testing and releasing and getting wash numbers and trying to put out as much information on these as I can as I let them out.
Sounds like you've been busy, man. I'm sure it's been a rewarding time to not only pheno hunting all these crosses, but also seeing which ones are washing great as well. But before we dive into that, to help out any of our listeners that may be new to this cannabis scene and just getting into growing, do you think you could help us out and maybe break down what goes into not just growing, but maybe more on the breeding side of things?
Yeah, sure. So generally, there's two kinds of breeding projects that people will do, like a regular project or a feminized project. I do regular breeding, which is a bit simpler and involves taking a female plant and a male plant, flowering them at the same time. The male plant produces pollen that the female plant receives and then uses to create seeds. With the feminized breeding projects, people apply chemicals to the plant to trick it into producing male pollen, and then you can use that pollen on another female plant. Um, Feminized breeding has a lot of really cool applications and uses, even just in working into regular breeding. And it's definitely something I would like to explore more in the future, but it's not something that I have experience with now. Um, but So what I typically do with the regular breeding is um, I say I grow out 20 seeds of a strain or a variety, and there's a lot of different opportunities to go about the process a different way. But what I would typically do if I was just looking for a female to grow is I would, uh, once the plants have a few sets of leaves, I would take a leaf clipping from each individual plant and I send it into a service that tests it for its sex. So whether it's going to be a male plant or a female plant. And if I'm just looking to grow out the females, once I get those lab results in, I get rid of all the males. If I was looking to do a breeding project, it would typically be with a plant that I've already grown out the females. I love this variety. It's something that I want to see mixed with other varieties, and it's something that I want to continue working with. So that's when I might decide, okay, I'm going to go back in and do a breeding project. And so then I would go through the process a little differently and I would keep the males and I would analyze them and I would see which ones seem like they have the traits that were similar to the females that I liked the most, and also the ones that have traits on their own that I think might be a positive thing to pass on down the line. So then you grow out the males And some people like to, with regular breeding, keep just one male, or some people like to use multiple males from the same variety. And some people like to even use multiple males from different strains. Um, but typically, what I'll do is, if I'm using just one strain, is have any of the males that have the traits that I want to keep. So it could be one, it could be three, it could be five, however many seem like they're going to do the best job. And then some people will keep their males separate and just collect the pollen, like on some tinfoil or on a piece of paper as it falls from the plant, and then go manually apply that pollen to the female plant. Um, but what I do is I actually just keep the males in the same tent as the females. So it's sort of like an overkill way to go about it, but it makes sure that, uh, the pollen is getting used, the pollen is getting, taken by the female plants, and that there's plenty of it. And I don't have to worry that, the job's not going to get done, basically.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I think being able to have that testing accessible kind of definitely helps speed up the process of all of that. But say someone doesn't have that available to them and they do kind of push everything into the same room. Is there anything you think they should be maybe worried about?
Definitely. And I think, one negative that comes from it is that you could end up with, different seeds that got pollinated at different times. And therefore, you have maybe some mature seeds and some immature seeds, where if you were to just pollinate all at once, you might, get one set of maturity. So that, maybe you end up with more seeds overall, but you have to sort through them, or, maybe not. But just, something to consider when making that decision.
Yeah, man, for sure. You always have to be on top of what's going on in your garden, big or small. I think that was a fantastic outline for anyone who wasn't familiar with what goes into finding all these genetics. I know I just kind of threw you on the spot there with that. So, right on, man. Another thing that plays a huge role that I think basic consumers may not be aware of is how each strain has its own timeline, right? But not only that, multiply that time by how many like back crosses and those cycles that you plan to do or maybe that you already have done. And that really adds up, man. So how do you deal with that when kind of getting into all these projects? That kind of has to be a challenge on itself.
Wow, yeah, it's hard to even put like a to quantify it, but definitely, it's it's feels like it's never ending, but definitely, just going through the timeline, it's sort of like a chicken or the egg situation, because it's like, okay, we're starting with the seed, but really, like, I already bred that seed, and I probably bred the dad that made it too. So, like, when you start to think about it and going back and back, it's like, oh, when did it ever really start? But basically, starting with the seed, um, going through to the sex testing phase, that only takes a couple weeks to get it to the point where it's big enough to send in a leaf clipping. So, that definitely speeds things along for me if I'm just growing female plants, or even to know which are the males, and to be knowing, like, I'm looking at the males differently from the beginning. It's helpful. Um, but it definitely takes a long time, because after you get through the veg stage, which could be as quick as, 3 to 4 weeks, depending on how you're growing. But for me, I typically take a bit longer, maybe 2 to 3 months. And then, flowering that takes another 8 to 11 weeks. And then, drying it or freezing it and washing it and getting the numbers on that, pressing it. Yeah, it certainly takes a long time. And you know, to really pheno hunt, say I'm growing 15 of each strain that I'm testing, um, and I end up with 8 females, and now I need to take cuttings or a clone of each of these females while they're in their vegetative state, and then flip the mothers to flower, which means putting them in a environment where the lighting is only about half the day, which triggers them to produce the buds. And so, that takes another couple months, and then, drying it and tasting it, comparing it, or making it to hash, comparing it. Um, and then at that point, you have enough information from watching it grow, from watching it dry and cure, whether if it's for flour or watching how it washed um, for hash, and then making all those decisions. All the meanwhile, you've got these cuttings that are now, full plants and veg, and some of them might not be worth keeping at all. A lot of times I'll run them again because they're big enough to get something out of, even if it's not, it's like, okay, I'm not going to keep every one of these, but they're all good enough to run again. And then getting that second look at them can often really help with that decision process as well, because a lot of most plants grow very differently or somewhat differently from their first time from seed to from clone. And so, you can if you can kind of get ahead of yourself at a lot of different steps along the way when you're trying to select one plant out of a group. And, if you don't let allow yourself to see what that plant does from clone, you can be really getting in your own way, because it might perform completely differently, for better or for worse. And one that maybe didn't do so hot the first round might be stellar from clone. And so, cutting out those females too early, like getting rid of those plants and being like, oh, I've picked my keeper. Like, you can do it so early. You can do it while the plants are still growing. That's probably too early. You can do it, after you've tried it, but, you could say that's too early because you haven't run it again from clone. The more time and effort and care and patience that you put in, the more you get out of it. And that's definitely a lesson that I've learned the hard way through the last 4 years or so.
Yeah, for sure. But part of the journey is definitely lessons learned, you know?
Absolutely. And, that it's just making those mistakes really, it's the best way to learn. And, it's the only way to ensure that you're not going to do it again. I still make some of the same mistakes over and over, but, every time, it's always that reminder to be more patient. And the patience has really been, for me, one of the most important parts of growing and breeding. Definitely not something to be overlooked.
No, no, definitely not. And that's why I thought it'd be important to kind of highlight just like how much time and care and attention that breeders and growers like yourself are putting in the books, man. Like, shout out to everyone really popping their seeds and going through their journey to bring the community these awesome genetics. And, just thank you. And kind of what's been cool for me, just being someone who's been watching you like grow the Brown Bag Farm Goods brand and your seed bank. I've been seeing all these cool brands and other growers around you that you've been able to network and collab with. Who's been helping you grow along this journey recently?
Definitely, I've been blessed to have some great mentors and teachers. Probably too many to list them all, but um, the first person to teach me how to make bubble hash, I won't say his name, but he was someone involved in the dead scene down in Asheville, North Carolina. And that was back in like 2012 that he taught me. And that was a huge game changer for me. And then a good friend of mine, um, Alex Sherma, What the Damn Health on Instagram. He's involved in the Ganjier program out in California. He, we really just kind of learned a lot together and bounced a lot off each other, and kind of came up through the, learning about extractions from the beginning together. And then a good friend of mine, Adam, out at WBA Alchemy out in Oregon, in Eugene. Another friend that I kind of came up with learning about extractions with. And then A good friend who I now am currently still working with, um, Mikey from MTS Farms. He is one of the breeders that I represent at the seed bank, and someone I think is really bringing a ton of heat to the community, especially for hash makers. I mean, he's doing a great job at making breeders, I'm sorry, at breeding grape varieties and other fruity varieties that are washing. But his focus is grape, and the amount of killer grape strains that he's brought to the market in a really short time is just awesome. And so I'm really blessed to be his exclusive seed bank, and definitely recommend everybody check out MTS Farms gear. And then also Top Dog Seeds, who has been, a pillar in cannabis for a very long time. He really brings some old classics and some incredible landrace strains and some incredible like heavy hitters that have been kind of cultivated over the years from his work. Um, so between the sours and the I-95s and the camas, he really crushes it as well. And then Bloom Seed Co., which uh, any hash maker is familiar with, they are just producing washer after washer after washer. That's where I got the strawberry guava from, a pack of their seeds, and it's really done me well. I mean, it's done right by me, and it's really kept the light bill on, so to speak. So uh, those are some of the breeders that I'm really excited to be sharing with the world.
For sure, man. And now we can all go check out the homies and grow ourselves because that's what it's all about, you know? One thing we can't leave out, dude, is this new category I see you have on Brownbag Farm Goods under the seeds. What's that all about, man?
Yeah, it's something that I just did recently, and I probably should have done a long time ago, but I created a filter in the search, you know, part of the shop on the Brown Bag Farm Goods website that is washers or hash makers. So you can just click that and see over 100 strains that will do well in the wash, and that kind of really cuts out a lot of the guesswork. And, you know, genetics are a huge part of hash making. I've, I spent years in Colorado making hash for the company I worked for. And, I didn't get the results I was looking for. I, improved my methods, I improved my equipment, and it got better, but it didn't get to where I wanted it to be. And it didn't take I mean, it took until I grew my own material and washed it to get, really the quality that I've been wanting to make. And it was such a it was such a light bulb moment. It was like, okay, I've done this process a million times, washing material, pressing rosin, but then when you finally do it with your own material that you worked hard to grow, and then it dumps, and it's so flavorful and it's melty, and it's like, oh, finally, like, this is what I've been wanting to do. This is what I've been waiting for. And it's funny, it's like I did the process the exact same way as I had always done it. And, it really just came down to the material and the genetics. And like straw guava is one that you could probably wash on a 70-degree day and it would collect pretty easily. Same thing with straw nana and some of these other varieties that are just, you know, producing a full gland head that has enough oils inside to make it worthwhile while having a waxy cuticle that is not susceptible to deteriorating in the water. And so just having that winning combination of trichome anatomy, that's what makes the difference. And you could make the difference from spending 6 months growing a harvest to getting a 1% yield or a 6% yield, and that's exponentially more medicine. And for some people, exponentially more money, which, allows everything else in life to happen. So, these things really do matter and they really make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, for sure. Time is the most valuable thing we have, you know? So, thanks for spending yours and getting it out there. So, if you're just getting into processing or you've been and you want to get more dialed in, this is all on brownbagfarmgoods.com. Brown bags, he's always saving you time. Can't get better than that. Well, brother man, thank you. Thank you for taking some time out of your day. And I hope to have you back here. Excited to hear how all these projects turn out. And we can dive into that solvent list next time.
I would love it. And if any of your listeners would want to check out the seeds on my website, I'm going to be putting up a discount code. The code will be TerpTrends, all one word, and that will get you 10% off any seed order.
And just when I said it couldn't get better, well, don't forget to use that Terp Trends for 10% discount. Thanks, brother. Let's make sure it gets put to good use. Well, till next time, man.
Thank you. Peace.